Welcome back to the Life of Tash Mia. I'm Tash. Today I've got another solo episode and it's about how I found my most authentic life. And I came up with this topic because recently I went away with my husband. And one night we decided after dinner to do some couples questions. And this is something we actually quite like to do a lot. So we've done quite a few of them, but we'd been given a new set from someone and it had a bit of a warning, like not for the faint-hearted. So we're like, oh yeah, we'll do this set. And we were just going through some questions. And one of the questions that came up, which wasn't a tricky question or anything, it was, well, for some people it might be, which was, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And a lot of people ask this question, like sometimes it's asked in job interviews. And my husband kind of gave his, I guess maybe standard replies of that the things that are his goals right now and that he's working on now have come to fruition, and that basically the assets are all working for him and he doesn't really have to do anything, which is a great reply. And my reply was a little different. And I said, look, I hope that all the things that we're planning and working on now come to fruition as well. But I will still be doing my purpose because I just said, I know what my gift to this world is. You can't just take from the world, you need to give. And that really stuck with me and maybe almost shocked me that I said something so profound. But I think when you know what your gift to the world is, you don't really have a choice but to share that and to do it. And it's not something that I've always had. It's something that I've really worked at to have over the last quite a few years now. And it's not something that even my husband has found yet. He's a bit younger than me. And to be honest, I was still on that journey at his age, and I wouldn't have been able to say at that point, I know what my gift is to the world. It's only something that really recently that has come to me. I know what it is and I'm confident in what that is, and that's why I'm here and I need to share that. So it's an interesting concept to really be living in yourself, and not just in yourself, but I mean like really inside yourself. And I think that's where I am, this new place of my life, is feeling I know exactly who I am and I know exactly what I'm bringing to it. I know what I'm bringing. And I've really refined my life to create that life that I've always really wanted. And I honestly believe that anyone can do it. And how it kind of started was in my corporate life. And I was really not happy in my corporate career. And I had worked really hard to get there, and I did all what society deemed as right. And I had got to a place where I was in a very successful job. I was being paid a lot of money, but I was deeply unhappy doing it. And so I kind of did what I now call a life audit. And I wrote down the areas of my life and I wrote down where I was in that area. Now, I now have it broken down into different sections. So it can be work, relationship, home, travel, hobbies, friendships. You can really break it down in granular level. I actually at the time was focusing on my biggest ones, which was my work, my relationship, and my purpose. They're really what was bothering me at the time. And I had dreamt of waking up with purpose, waking up with passion, like excited for my day. And I just felt like at the time it was Groundhog Day. You know, I was waking up at the same time every morning. I think my alarm would go off at like 5:15 so I could go and work out before I went into the office, go to the office, have my meetings, do my work, come home, cook dinner, go to bed. And then the next day it was rinse and repeat. And I wasn't waking up with a spring in my step. I wasn't waking up with passion. And I was a decade into a career that was deemed as successful by my family standards, by my friends' standards, by society standards, but I was miserable. So I didn't know what that purpose was going to be even at this time, but I knew that that was something that I needed to change and that I wasn't happy with. It's interesting because, as I said, I didn't think I had purpose, but I was thinking about, people always say, if you want to do what you love, do your hobbies. And I used to think, what, like kink and wellness? Like they were my hobbies. And I'm like, I literally thought, how could I make money out of that? This was way before the whole wellness movement was a big thing. But I thought, I can't do anything with that. I can't make a career out of that. I can't make a life out of that. I have a daughter to support. And then I realized that was a self-limiting belief I had. And until I overcame that self-limiting belief, well, then I wasn't going to be able to do that. I wasn't going to be able to make money out of what I actually was passionate about, which was staring at me in the face, because I had a self-limiting belief around how you make a career, how you earn money, that just wasn't the way you could do it. So once you kind of do your life audit, you really need to think about, and you've got where you are now, you really need to think about where you want to be. And not just where you want to be as in you pick that out of a magazine or a movie, but you need to think about, what do I value most? So for example, if you're doing this with where you live, maybe you're choosing where you want to set up your life or something, you think about, okay, what do I value in my home environment? Do I value waking up in the clean, fresh country air? Do I value being in a city because it gives me ideas? Do I want to be jumping in the ocean every morning? That's how you pick it. What do you value? And then that's how you write, okay, that's where I want to get to. That's where I want to be. So I really had to question my values, especially around my work, which was, am I willing to take a paycheck for my soul? Or am I willing to take a risk for a life with passion and to not have to pretend to be someone I'm not? Because pretending to be someone else is exhausting. Now, I don't care whether you're doing this at work like I was, or whether you're doing it in a relationship, or whether you're doing it just to go down to your local grocery shop. Pretending to be someone you're not is exhausting. And I was exhausted of doing it, and I didn't want to do it anymore. So at the time, actually, I was pregnant with my daughter and I was doing my MBA. And I thought that my big business idea that was going to solve all these problems was going to come during me doing my MBA. It was going to hit me like a light bulb. I was like, that's it. That's what I'm meant to be doing. Well, I did my MBA and it didn't hit me. So that didn't work. But kind of before I was able to really examine that any closely, I was also realizing that my relationship with my daughter's father wasn't right. And I still remember the exact moment it hit. We were in Rome. We'd met up there to do a bit of a holiday. I'd been in Germany doing my international business subject. And then we decided to meet up in Rome to have a bit of a holiday, maybe a bit of a pre-baby moon. I was about 4 or 5 months pregnant. And we were in the streets of Rome having the same type of argument that we always have. And I just had this thought come into my head, this isn't going to work. And people who have been pregnant maybe could understand what it's a paralyzing thought that could be when you're, about to have a baby, a planned pregnancy. It's not like it wasn't planned. This was a planned pregnancy. And I realized that this wasn't going to work, this relationship I was in. And it's scary. And I had a choice to make. I could ignore it or I could do something about it. I chose to ignore it for a while because at that point I just couldn't face it. But before my daughter was even 1, I actually ended the relationship with her dad. And it was still a very scary thing to do because, according to my ex's eyes, his words were, I was literally tearing the family apart. But I knew inside of me that this was not the right relationship for me. And what was more important was it was not going to be the right environment for my daughter. I always said to myself, I was not going to bring my daughter up in the childhood that I had, which was two parents who argued all the time, who were extremely unhappy, who stayed together because that was seen as the right thing to do for the child. And I can 100% say that did more damage in my childhood than if they had split earlier, because they split later on when I was nearly an adult. It would have been way better to have two parents who were happy living their best lives separately than two parents absolutely miserable living together. So when I saw that that was going to be the future for my daughter, it wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right decision to make. And it took 2 years for that relationship to really settle. And, if you ask anyone who was involved, me, or my ex, it was the right decision. He will admit it completely now. He didn't see it at first, but it was definitely the right decision, and everyone is living a much better life because of it. And we have such an amazing co-parenting relationship. It's probably one of the best ones I've ever seen. We get people complimenting us on it, and it's not easy. Don't get me wrong. As I said, it took 2 years to get there, and we still have bumps in the road. But we made the rule from day one that every decision starts with, is this best for my daughter? And if the answer is no, then you've got your answer to any question. And there's been a few things that have popped up where maybe I've wanted things to be a bit different, or something is not sitting quite easy with me. And then if I ask myself, is this for you? Or is this for what's best for my daughter? And if it's for me, then I don't do it. So I think that's really helped, and we're now really great co-parents, and we have the happiest child. She, honestly, anyone who meets her, she's such a happy child. She doesn't know any better, because obviously she's grown up this way before she knows better. But having two happy parents who can get along and who've got very similar parenting views, thankfully, she just has more people who love her because of it. Really, that's the only difference I see. But once that relationship ended, I really had to figure out what type of relationship I wanted, because I knew that what I had in my life audit, the relationship just wasn't right. But I didn't really know exactly what relationship I wanted. I had previously already been in the kink scene. I had been introduced to the concept of polyamory, which really resonated with me. But I didn't know exactly where I was going to fit into how I wanted my relationship to be. And really, it was a whole bunch of trial and error. I spent a few years dating, not dating, very different formats, trialing things, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work. But what was really important is that I could have given up at many points during that journey. At the time, being open and E&M and all that wasn't very common. I could have easily, in a few relationships that I was testing, it was tempting to give it up and just conform. But I didn't. I persisted. And I got to the point where I said to myself, I would rather be single for the rest of my life than be in the wrong relationship. And I really believe that, during that time of trial and error, it was the universe testing me. If I was really committed to wanting to live the most authentic life, would I give it all up for someone else? And the relationship I had before I met my husband actually was a test. And it was through that experience where I was with someone who was very avoidantly attached. And I realized that it's not worth it. And that's when I said I'd rather be single than be in a relationship. And I really meant it. It wasn't just words. I meant it. I felt it. And I'm like, I have got so much going for me in my life. This is not something that is a must-have. I have a wonderful daughter. I was already at this point building my new career. I was already in that. And I had an amazing group of friends and support around me. And then I met my husband. So I kind of feel like it was the universe's last test to see whether I was really committed to the cause. And I think that's really vital to realize, is that you will be tested. When you are working towards getting something that you want, you won't just be given it on a platter. You will be tested, and more than once. It's not going to be easy. Just because it's the right thing for you doesn't mean it's going to be easy. But the payoff is what's worth it, I think. The relationship I have now is the most authentic and amazing relationship I have ever had. No one has to fake being anything in it. I've never been more myself in a relationship. Every part of me is accepted, and same to my partner. I accept all parts of him. Again, it's the most work I have ever done in a relationship, but it's also the easiest relationship I've had because we do so much work, if that makes sense. Our principle is we are honest even if it hurts. And it's amazing to be loved for all parts of you and to be so genuine in that love and to accept all parts. You don't have to hide anything, even the parts you were trying to hide from yourself. And he accepts me for everything I do. He met me as a pro-dom, which I'm sure is not the easiest thing to accept in your partner, but he has been nothing but supportive of my job and my career and now my business, and he is always my biggest champion of it. So going back to my work and my career and that path, during me doing this life audit and kind of realizing that my career wasn't where I wanted it to be, my life's purpose wasn't where I wanted it to be, I met one of my now best friends who introduced me further into the BDSM scene. As I said, I'd previously been in kink, I'd been to, BDSM social parties and things like that. So I was aware of the community, but I wasn't an active participant really into that scene. But through her and her long-term sub at the time, I got exposed to this new world, and I was just becoming more and more passionate and intrigued about it. So with them, I had a couple of years of really just getting myself educated and practicing and getting more and more knowledge and experience with it. And after this had been happening, so I'd been playing with them for quite a while and learning and stuff, we were having redundancies at my job. And they were asking people who were interested to kind of signal it to their managers. And I thought, this is the universe testing me. Can you walk the talk? Like, are you really going to do what you say you're going to do? So I went to my manager, who I was friends with at the time, and said, if they're asking for hands, my hand is up. And I got my redundancy, and with my payout, I set up my first dungeon. I started building up my client base, and I was really loving what I was doing. I was waking up with passion. And look, again, it wasn't easy. I had to really work on my energy, realize the power of my energy, really learn how holding space for people and to grow and heal it required a lot of energy. And I really had to learn how to balance that in what I was doing. So it's not like I just knew all and became the immortal dom. It was really, again, a learning process. But I was already loving what I was doing, waking up with passion. And, I was finally, as I say, like the CEO of my life. I could decide what my day was. I could decide what my week was. I could decide what my year was. I could make it as I wanted it. And that brought me a lot of joy. And again, it doesn't just stop there. We're always growing. We're always evolving. And so a few years into pro-doming, I started getting more female clients, which were either coming on their own or as partners of clients, of submissive men generally, that were wanting to learn how to dom. And so it was really interesting because I'm like, wow, there was this aspect of it that I didn't see originally. And as I was starting to do this work, because I was really drawn to it, I realized the things that were missing were people's confidence and competence. So like the two C's is really what was preventing people, stepping into their dom. And I don't think it's just about stepping into your dom. It's stepping into your own power and your own authentic self again. And it's that confidence and competence to feel that you can do it. People would come in very shy, very quiet because they were just like, oh, I don't know what to do and I don't know how to be. And I clearly saw this is confidence and competence. And I did see that people weren't really understanding what dominance was. And I was really trying to show them that it didn't have to be this scary, mean, shouting thing, which is what so many people's perception is of it, especially if you don't know much about it, that it could be a very soft, a very sensual, a very feminine approach, or whatever approach you wanted to bring to it, you could. It wasn't a prescription like A plus B equals dom. It's just not like that. And I would explain to them that being in the dominant role is really about being in the leadership role and facilitating an experience and taking care of someone who is in their most vulnerable state. And women are actually very good once they understood this, because naturally we are very good leaders. Naturally we facilitate very easily, and we're very good at taking care of people. So once people kind of understood that aspect to it, it really built their confidence up in, oh, I could do that. Like a lot of people already do that in parts of their lives. So you're taking skills that you probably already have and applying it in another setting. And then the other part, feeling competent more, is tools, learning how to do things. And I mean, it's maybe a little bit too simplistic as I say it to people who I train, is like, I can teach any monkey how to use the tools. That's just learning. Like literally that is just learning and practice. Now, don't get me wrong, you need to know how to use it, because otherwise it's dangerous and you can hurt people. But that's not the hard bit. Like that literally is like learning how to, bake a cake with a blender. You're just learning how to put some tools together with the ingredients. The art really to it is the communication, the negotiation, learning about consent, knowing what your boundaries are, the dance between the dom and the sub. That's the art. That's the element of what you bring to it. The rest really is just learning and practice. So I started actually then training other pro doms. I had a few people who wanted to become professional doms come to me, and so I came up with more of a structured course onto how to be a dom. And I started training doms one-to-one, which I still do. And through that work, I really started to realize that the education and empowerment aspect was more and more becoming my passion and my purpose. And I realized that I was evolving, and so was my authentic self. And as I said, we're not just stagnant creatures, and our authentic self isn't stagnant either. It's always going to be evolving with what you're doing. And being my authentic self doesn't mean like I decide what that authentic self is and I stay it for the rest of my life. That's not how it works. It means that I'm always in my authentic self, and that authentic self is going to be evolving with my journey as a person, with my growth as a person. So I was seeing that I really wanted to bring my approach to life and to kink through education and empowerment and de-shaming to others. And I felt that was what my gift was to the world. It was about how you can completely transform your life to be your most authentic self. And that lives outside of kink. That lives in every aspect of your life. And kink has taught me how to do that. And you can apply those principles, as I said, to really anything you want to transform in your life. And look, it's not an easy journey. There's a lot of self-doubt, and I'm not immune from that. And there's a lot of worries. There's worries, can I do this? Does anyone even care? I had worries about being very public. Once I decided that I was going to be, it's very easy to hide myself when I was just pro-doming or teaching people in my studio one-on-one. It's very easy to hide myself from the public view. But I said, if I'm going to really do what my calling, I believe, was and is, I needed to put my face to it. And that was a very conscious decision to be public. And that was a worry. And it was something, I was out with everyone in my life, except for one person actually, which was my daughter's father, because I was worried it could impact something around that. And now I told him before I had started my business of what I have now about education empowerment, I had to tell him that I was a pro-dom. His response is so sweet. He was like, it's not much of a leap, because he knew me. He knew what I was like as a person. And I've always been very open-minded into a lot of different things. So I don't think it wasn't a big leap for me to say that. And he was very supportive about it. But then I really had to, when I went public, I really had to consult him again that my face was now going to be behind this. And he is the father of my daughter, and his opinion did matter, and I did have to get his permission, which he obviously gave, because you're seeing my face. But there's always worries, there's always doubt, there's always obstacles for you to overcome. But if you feel so strongly about what you're called to do and living the most authentic life, then you can do it. And I've never been one to play it safe or to play it small. And so I went with it. Go large or go home is what they say. And while it is hard to put yourself out there, the thing that I always come back to is there is only one me. Like, there's only one you. And I am the best version of me, and you are the best version of you. And it's so easy to compare yourself to other people and what other people are doing and look at what they're doing. And it's great, because I look at so many people and I love what they're doing, but I don't let that stop me from doing me. Even if they're in the same industry, even if they're doing the same similar things. In the past, I could be like, how could I do this? This person does it so much better, or the way they said that is so much better than how I would say it. But no, there's only me, and that's my advantage, is that only I can do me the best. And it's in my authenticity that I found my purpose. So now I'm entering the next phase of my life. I'm building my brand and my business more and more. I'm sharing my passion and I'm sharing my purpose. And at the end of the day, I do that because I want to be me. And being me means being the most authentic version I can of myself to live my best life. And that's where we will end for today, because I don't know what's coming up next. So I hope that helps, sharing a bit of how I did my journey to become my most authentic self. And as I said, I really truly believe anyone can do it. And as always, stay kinky.